Let's hop on a train for a New Year's Eve party and hope that unexpected guest doesn't get us before midnight. Let's get into it. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And with New Year's Eve just a few days away, we're going to start our preparations for a huge New Year's Eve party. But before we do that, do me a favor. Like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here. I greatly would appreciate that. Today we're going to talk about the 1980 slasher film Terror Train. Terror Train dropped October 3rd of 1980. It's rated R. It's an hour and 37 minutes long. Had a budget of $3.5 million, and upon release, it made $8 million. This movie was the directorial debut for Roger Spottiswoode. He used to be an editor for Sam Peckinpah, and this was his first opportunity to actually direct his own film. He later go on to direct Turner and Hooch, Tomorrow Never Dies, the James Bond film with Pierce Brosnan, The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he also directed a film I just reviewed back in the beginning of November called The Best of Times with Kurt Russell and Robin Williams. Now, in this film, we got Ben Johnson as Karn. He plays a train conductor, the main train conductor on this film. He used to work with Peckinpah, and he was a big character actor back then, and he took the job because he knew who Roger was by his work with Sam Peckinpah, so he was happy enough to take the role and come in and do this film. We also got the lovely Jamie Lee Curtis as Elena. We got Hart Bochner as Doc, and most people would famously remember him as Ellis in Die Hard, although he was in PCU, a college comedy with Jon Favreau, and then he would also be in Urban Legends 2 Final Cut later on, another horror film. David Copperfield, yes, that David Copperfield is in this film as well as only acting in a film. He's been in other stuff as himself, but this is the first time, although he's just known as the magician in this film. And Derek McKenna plays Kenny, and this was his first film role as well. He wasn't a trained actor, and he came in and got the role in this film as well. And this film is a slasher film. And the best kinds of or one of the main staples of slasher films is somebody who's done wrong that comes back for vengeance later on. And that's certainly what happens to Kenny in this film. At the beginning of the film, he's hanging out at this frat party, and you can also tell Kenny's like an awkward type, very socially awkward. And Doc is kind of messing with him, but he says, you know, Elena really wants to be with you. And they get Jamie Lee Curtis's character to go along with this prank, as they call it. And she goes up in this room in the frat house, waiting for Kenny. And she's hiding behind these curtains. And there's somebody laying in the bed who she thinks is another woman who's supposed to be a joke on Kenny. And Kenny comes in and he lays in the bed, and when he pulls back the cover, it's a corpse because Doc is a medical student, so he has access to such things. And Kenny freaks out. Something from his childhood triggers in him, and he starts flipping out in the bed. We cut, and we fast forward a few years, and now they're seniors, Doc and his friends and Elena. And Doc has planned this New Year's Eve bash for their final senior year on this train. Where Doc got the money for this, who knows? But they're going on this train, and they have a magician, they got a band. Although they say, Doc even says during the film that he didn't hire no magician, but there's a magician on the plane, which they kind of play, you know, they're trying to throw you off of who the killer is. Although it's pretty obvious if you're paying attention. Ben Johnson's one of the conductors. Right as the train's getting ready to take off, one of the people get killed by a sword that's put through him, and the killer takes his costume and boards the train. Which is one of the unique things about this film, where the killer, as he kills people, because everybody's wearing a costume, it's like a costume New Year's Eve party, he switches costumes. First it's a Groucho Marx mask, and then he switches on to this this lizard outfit that kind of looks like a reject suit from the Humanoids of the Deep movie, and then he's like other characters down the line. And we don't know who, they're trying to play up the whodunit, who is it? Now, I've seen this film many times over the years, but if you really pay attention, it's obvious Kenny is back for vengeance. We don't see him until later on in the film, although we do see him. We'll talk about that in a second. We have David Copperfield doing magic for the crowd, and they kind of throw it where it might be his character is doing the killing. At one point, they think it's him, and it's a red herring. Obviously, it's not him, and more people die. And they don't really show the kills all that much. One student who's dressed like the lizard gets his head smashed into a mirror. You see that happen, but you see the aftermath, the blood aftermath when they find a body laying on the floor. You don't really see the act itself all that much. You see the aftermath. And as the movie goes along, the killer's killing more and more people, even kills the magician, David Copperfield. They find him in his box with swords through him. And then finally it's revealed that it's Kenny. And Kenny boarded a train as David Copperfield's character's assistant, this woman who we think's a woman. And if you've never seen it, the first time seeing it, you would think it's a woman until later on in the film, and it starts clicking. Oh shit, that's Kenny, and that's a reveal. It's a kind of a surprise, a twist. But by the end, he's chasing Elena. He has a sight set on her. He's killed off Doc and her boyfriend and her other friends. So he's concentrating on her, and he's killing other folks as well. And then we have our final battle in this one car where the conductors hang out. They think Elena killed him by pushing him out the car off the train. And they put her in this car by herself. But Kenny's not dead. He comes back for one final scare, as Randy would say from Scream. And he attacks Elena again, and Ben Johnson's character comes out of nowhere and hits Kenny with a shovel, knocks him out of the car, and he falls off this bridge, out of the train, off this bridge, and out in the icy cold water, and he's dead, and cut the credits. And that is Terror Train. What to like about this film? Well, as Jamie Lee Curtis, and this is one of the many horror films she did back then. She was coming off of doing Prom Night and writing The Terror Train. As a matter of fact, she shot Prom Night in Toronto, Canada, and when they stopped filming Prom Night, 2 weeks later, she went and started filming this film in Montreal. That's where they shot Terror Train. All of it except for the final where Kenny falls out of the train. That was shot in New Hampshire, actually. And so the setting on the train is cool. Not that other films haven't done it, but it's a cool setting for a lower budgeted slasher film. There's some nice shots in the film. It's definitely, the cinematography is pretty good in parts. There's an opening shot when they get on the train. Well, these doors open, his train starts coming out, his steam engine starts coming out. That's a great shot. And there's some cool lighting choices throughout the film. And they do make good use of the claustrophobia of a train car. They definitely use that to their advantage. The kills are nothing special. I mean, you get to see, again, you don't get to see the act itself. It's more so the aftermath. You get to see Doc, when he gets killed, the aftermath is his severed head. It's not a very convincing severed head, but there's a severed head there. The way Kenny dies isn't the greatest. We don't get a final... Elena battles him and kicks him off the side of the train, at least we think she does. And then after that, the final moment, she doesn't really get to fight him. Like, Ben Johnson's character, Karn, comes in, hits him with the shovel twice, and then he goes flying out the door and into the icy river below. And that's pretty much it. So Kenny gets killed kind of in an unceremonious way, and then they cut the credits. It's almost like there's a missing scene at the end. So that was always odd. And even as I get older, it's kind of an odd choice for this film. I don't know if they ran out of money or what. The cast is pretty good. Jamie Lee Curtis is good as always. And of course, you got a veteran actor like Ben Johnson, who they said was pleasant to be around. He wanted to be there. He was thrilled to be there working with a bunch of younger folks in a horror film. He said he never thought he would be doing it, but he got to do it. And he actually asked the director to cut some of his lines. He said, I don't need to say all these lines. Let's just cut out what I don't need to say, what's not necessary, and just have me give the lines that I need to say to move the plot forward and interact with people. He stated that he learned that from John Ford, working with John Ford, that the less you say, especially somebody like him who emotes so much from just his physical being, that you don't need to say as much as other people. And he said, just give my lines to somebody else. He goes, I don't need them. Just give me less. And that's pretty awesome from an actor that's been around for many times, have been in some legendary movies. So that's pretty cool. Again, Jamie Lee Curtis is great. David Copperfield is good as the magician, and there's some chemistry between him and Jamie Lee Curtis. He kind of likes her, you could tell. Derek McKenna as Kenny is pretty good. He plays unhinged really well. He wasn't a trained actor. As a matter of fact, he just kind of stumbled into this role. He was actually a transvestite in his real life. So when it was time for him to pretend to be the magician's assistant, he was game to do those things. Again, I don't think this film's the greatest slasher film. The producer is even quoted as saying he basically wanted to make Halloween on a train. And the producer even called Deborah Hill and John Carpenter because he knew both of them and told them his idea, and they told him to go for it. I thought it was pretty cool that he called and asked him. He didn't have to ask him. How many films ripped off Halloween after the success of that film in the 80s? A lot of films did. But he had the courtesy to call Carpenter and Hill and ask him if it was all right if he used Halloween and put it on a train. At the end of the day, this is a serviceable slasher film. It's not my favorite slasher film. It's one I've grown up on. I've seen it many times over the years. I remember watching as a kid on TV. I have that Blu-ray from Scream Factory. It has some interviews with the producers and the production designer. Overall, this is a very solid slasher film. It's not the greatest. It doesn't hit the annals of like Halloween or Black Christmas or Nightmare on Elm Street or ones like that. But it's a very solid slasher film with a great cast. I think the cast does pretty well here. And I think Roger Spottiswoode does a pretty good job considering this is his first director job. And at the end of the day, I would give Terror Train a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 for Terror Train. What are your thoughts on this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe button, share this video. I greatly appreciate that. I want to wish all you out there a happy new year. I'm going to do the Terror Train remake after New Year's Day. And then they're going to be dropping the sequel on Tubi to their remake of Terror Train. So we'll be on the lookout for that review. And until next time, bye.